I believe in the promise of America.
Yo creo en la promesa de América.
That's why I became a citizen.
That's why I vote.
That's why I stand up to be counted.
I will get counted.
I will be counted.
I will be counted.
That's why I participate.
That's why I joined the NCLR's Action Network.
I want change for my community.
Change for my family.
Mi familia.
I want change for my country.
We can't depend on Congress to get it done.
Send a message to Washington.
Show them we have the courage they lack.
The battle over whether or not there is provable voter fraud in America rolls forward, with both sides scoring legitimate points from time to time. But what a certain group of lawyers and activists has done this week will only give the fraud believers more and publicized ammunition to make their case. Let's welcome to MidPoint political reporter for the Daily Caller, who wrote about the group Raza and how they're helping illegals to vote to their heart's content. Patrick Howley joins us today, writer on MidPoint. Patrick, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ed.
Patrick, this must have actually caught you, maybe not by a little bit of surprise, because certainly Raza is one of those groups that is always advocating aggressively for the cause of open borders. They focus as an illegal alien lobby to many people. But isn't this basically just saying, here's voter fraud, kids, run with it?
It really looks that way. Essentially what happened is the Washington Post, in its infinite wisdom, one of its political reporters, Aaron Blake, did a very helpful sort of infographic, pointing out all of the states in the country where you don't need a photo ID to go in and participate in our democratic process. And so, the Washington Post published that. They didn't make any specific reference to illegal immigrants. They didn't really provide any context. It was just sort of a helpful user guide for people who don't have a photo ID and want to vote, which goes to the whole, MSNBC talking point that we hear all the time about how poor people in our inner cities don't have photo ID, and so photo ID laws are discriminatory. So fine, the Washington Post publishes that. Shortly thereafter, an Asian American lawyer group in Chicago tweets this out and says, here's the Washington Post explaining how in the state of Illinois you don't need to have a photo ID to go in and vote. And that tweet was immediately promoted and retweeted by the National Council of Raza. So that was something that Raza wanted to get out to their audience, and to, which is comprised to a large degree of people, aspiring Americans, people who don't have citizenship, who are trying to get amnesty. And so that's, something that they put out to their audience and said, look, if you're in the state of Illinois, you don't have a photo ID, you can go into the polls and vote.
Now, let's get down to this, because there was a recent Harvard study showing that, and this is Harvard talking about this isn't exactly a bastion of conservatism here, saying that illegal immigrants have almost certainly swung close elections in recent years by canceling out U.S. citizens' votes to ensure Democratic victories. Aren't they just publicizing here in many ways? Welcome to voter fraud. We've got it, and they've given a tremendous amount, if you will, ammunition to the right as we head for elections.
Absolutely, and the thing is, the mainstream media doesn't report on these kinds of things, so a lot of people don't know this, but even the group Judicial Watch just the other day found numerous instances of illegal immigrants voting in the 2008 election, and predicted that may have helped Barack Obama win in 2008, both in the primary against Hillary Clinton and also in the general election against John McCain. In 2012, you heard a lot of stories, some of which were confirmed, some of which were not, about voter fraud. You heard, there was a great report by John Fund for National Review about how Al Franken's last election 6 years ago was basically stolen because there was so much voter fraud going on in Minnesota, a lot of it being done by illegal immigrants. And so, this is definitely something that Republicans are concerned about, and Democrats have managed to very effectively demagogue the issue and say that if you're against, people being able to vote without proving who they are, then you're essentially a racist. And they've done that in the African American community, they've done that in the Hispanic community, the Asian American community. They've said, listen, if you don't support the right for people to just go in and say that they're registered to vote with no proof and go into the ballot box, then you're essentially engaging in racism. And it's been very difficult for Republicans to push back against that.
Only got about 30 seconds left here. Has there been any pushback yet or any reaction to this from Raza or anybody on the left? Basically, I'm sure they're going to discount this no matter what we say.
You know, they can't discount the facts. I mean, Raza has not made any statement about it, but certainly there's been a lot of pressure on them to say something or to do something about it since we revealed it. You know, with a week to go until Election Day, I think they're just going to keep throwing these desperate tactics at the wall.
It's an interesting tactic indeed, basically saying here are the states where if you don't have ID, you can go right ahead and vote. Comes right again down to voter ID laws, voter fraud, and so much more. Patrick Howley, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, next up, if you haven't gotten a recall notice for your car lately, hey, don't worry. Good chance it's coming sooner or later. And at 51 minutes after the hour, today's water cooler deals with Pope Francis, the litigious Ebola nurse, and one breastfeeding picture on Facebook, right here on MidPoint.